Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Southern Sports Gumbo. This is Sweets here. First of all, I want to apologize, or actually say you're welcome to anybody who follows our gambling picks for the second consecutive week. We were washed, so if you faded us, you made a lot of money. So you're welcome. We will make some more picks today. Be sure to fade them and fatten your bank account, because that's what we're good at, is fattening people's bank accounts. Second thing I wanted to jump into, and we'll go right into this, is the debacle that was the LSU football team this weekend. I'm almost at a loss for words, but then I've got, it's insane how poorly the offense played, and I don't hold no grudges against the defense. They held Ole Miss to 24 points over 4 quarters. Ole Miss had 90 something plays. The time of possession was insane. The fact that LSU's defense held Ole Miss to 24 points was actually unbelievable. But the offense, Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, by Brad Davis, everybody should be on notice on the offensive side of the ball. That was unacceptable. It's unacceptable that through 5 weeks of the season, LSU football cannot run the ball against a three-man front. It's embarrassing. Seriously, I'm just at a loss for words. What you were there, DMAC? What was your take on it, being there live?
Yeah. I thought we came out really good to start the game. We scored a touchdown, less than 6 minutes into the game, go up 7-0. And we really took the crowd out of the game after that first touchdown. I'm in the crowd thinking, I thought we were being conservative with a 10 to 14 point LSU win 6 minutes into the game. Well, fast forward an hour and a half later, and boy, was I disappointed. But, more so than us not being able to run the ball on a three-man front, what's even more disappointing is the amount of pressure they were able to create in the passing game against it. With a three-man front. And it's not like they've got, Warren Sapp and some stud, Hall of Famers in the NFL on that defensive line where, okay, maybe they're getting past some people. We had 5 guys trying to block 3 all night, and whether it was run, pass, whatever, it just didn't work. So that stuck out to me a lot, but the lack of discipline by our team. I know a lot of people have talked about the DJ Pickett pass interference, whether they agreed with it or not, had that pick 6 that got called back as being a momentum changer. I think you go earlier in that drive when Weeks hits the quarterback late. We're going to get the ball back 2 plays later. They're
Yep.
down, the 6-yard line. If we don't commit that play, there's not even the pass interference call in this game. You get the ball back with a chance to take the lead there. So, the lack of discipline definitely falls back on the coaching staff. At some point players have to execute better, but if you're not preparing well for these games, which is pretty evident by the lack of discipline at times, it's tough to execute. If I if I don't go and hit balls before I go and play 18 holes on the golf course, or I don't practice putting, I can't expect to sink putts and hit fairways all day. There's a lot to be upset about in this game, and rightfully so. But on the bright side, LSU sitting at 4-1, and as ugly as it was, 4-1 isn't a terrible place to be right now, preseason wise. We beat Clemson, but definitely a lot of things have to change. And, if quarterback Garrett Nussmeier is not healthy, it might be time to explore some other options. Let him continue to get rested up. Because we got to have somebody on this team who can throw the ball 40 yards downfield and, not underthrow. And
I
it's
agree, and
not a
it.
shot.
It was why, and what's wilder to me is listening to people and going into the forums like On3 and 24/7 and seeing people saying that Nussmeier should have took himself out of the game. Listen, a quarterback is never going to pull himself. Any gamer is never going to pull himself out of the game. That's the coach's job. Our $100 million man, Coach Brian Kelly, he needs to make that call. I try to explain it to some people in a different way that maybe they didn't play sports or football at least. so they could understand if a company is being ran and a certain employee isn't doing his job, it's not the employee's job to remove himself from that situation. It's the boss's job. It's the CEO's job. It's somebody above him's job. And if Kelly knows that Nussmeier can't get it done and he's sending him out there anyway, that's on him. That's on him. What do you think,
Yeah.
Kev?
Okay. So I want to come at this from an angle and apply some stats to this. So first, let me say one thing about the game. So Ole Miss, I'm going to say, is maybe a little better than we thought they were, but it went about what I thought it would from their offensive standpoint. Going into the game, I felt like they'd score 17. If you look at, again, how long we were on the field and the one drive where we gave them 45 yards, to your point, D-Mac, with the undisciplined play, with a roughing the passer and then 2 pass interference calls after that. And look, I don't mind the Pickett one. He's just being aggressive, trying to make a play. He'll learn from that.
Yep.
The roughing the passer though, when it's clearly thrown and you push the guy to the ground, it's right in front of you, and it would have been 3rd and 20 or 2nd and 20 at that time inside their 15. You're not only talking about you started a drive that gets points, you gave up field position. We get off the field there, we force them to punt from their own 20, let's say, then we get field position and we're ahead in the game and we can go score. It's 7-3 at the time, after an interception, we go score. But here's where I want to go with the offense. So I looked up some stuff, and the statistic part of this in the last 2 years and how we're playing in the running game, to me, is the concern. Because even though I said Ole Miss was about what we thought they would be, what I'm also going to say is LSU is less than I thought they would be offensively. And I think at this point in the year, we have to say and accept that this is what we are, because we're not just talking about the games so far this year. We were better offensively last year because of us throwing the ball more. But when you look at our running game, it's the same last year as this year. And the fact that we don't want to establish a running game. So let me kind of throw, not just talk at it, let's talk about some numerics into this. So I want to talk about 2022, 2023 versus 24 and so far this year. And then I'm going to talk about some more things with the diversity of our running game. So, people can say that this has been Kelly's running the ball for 4 years. I totally disagree with that. This is Denbrock versus Sloan. I'm going to call it just like it is. So if you look at the first 2 years, and yes, Jaden Daniels ran the ball, but outside of Jaden, 2022, we had about 1,600 yards rushing by our running backs. And 3 of those running backs averaged 5 yards a carry or more. And one was Noah Kane, who, we would all say is not the guy that we were going to say we would have thought would have averaged almost 5 yards rushing. You had Emory, you had Josh Williams on that team, and all 3 of those guys averaged almost 5 yards a pop. One was 4.9, the other 2 were over 5. Same thing in 2023. We rushed for almost 1,600 yards. Logan Diggs averaged 5.5 a carry, and we had 2 other guys. You had Armani Goodwin on that one of those teams too, who had almost 300 yards rushing. Again, you had 1,600 yards and 3 guys that were right at 5 a pop or over 5 a pop. Now you go last year and this year, we don't have guys averaging 5 yards a carry. And again, Logan Diggs, when he played in 23, got a lot of his running between the tackles. Some of it was power plays and counter traps. So what is the difference? We had diversity in our running game back then. We ran counters, we ran traps, we had some power plays. What are we doing now? So to date, we have 142 rushing plays. And out of those 142, about 80 of those rushing plays are some type of zone, either outside zone, inside zone. 60% of your running plays are the same thing. So if you're a defense, you just play us to run zone. And so as a defensive line, if we're going to run zone, so number one, if you're running zone, your offensive line is basically sidestepping and creating a hole, but they're a power play where they're attacking a defensive line. You got a lead blocker. That's not what we're doing. We're running zone. We're trying to spread it out and do it. If you're a defense, that's what you want to do to stop it. You want to do the same thing. You're not trying to force forward. You're just going to slide along with us, try to spread the play out, right? To give the team, your defense time to pursue. And as long as you can string that play out farther, you pursue and you tackle it. So very easy. Now, if That team is going to slide. If we're going to run outside zone or inside zone and we're going the same way, you just slide along with it. Now, if you ran a counter against that and so you bring a pulling guard in, an H back in, and you run a counter play, that team that's sliding, you can let them wash themselves out to one side and you can smack them in the mouth and you can create a hole. But we don't do that. We have 0 power plays so far this year. 0. It's 60% zone. That is so easy to defense. So you say, okay, what is LSU's problem? We don't have a running game. Our offensive coordinator don't believe in a run. I'm just going to call it like it is. We ran 9 plays against the running plays against the worst rushing defense in the SEC in the first half. And 7 of those was by Xavier Thomas. I don't mind him running the ball. 7 out of 9 plays in that you basically are running to a wide receiver that you're bringing into the backfield. There's nothing that you're trying to establish with that. You're just trying to say, well, maybe we'll catch them off a guard. We'll do this. But look, that's how we run the ball. We're not catching anybody off guard anymore. And so, yes, Nuss can be hurt, and there's some legitimacy to that. Yes, he needs to make better decisions. But at the foundation, you're not going to win games if you can't run the ball, at least some. And again, if you ran 9 plays in the first half, do you know how many times you ran the ball consecutively? 0. We never ran 2 running plays back to back. You're not trying to establish any kind of running game. It's the same thing we did last year. So, I listened to Cole Cubic some, and I was listening to him after our game on the SEC network, and they were talking about LSU, and I think Roman Harper was like, they have to establish a running game, and Cole Cubic was straight out, they're not going to do it. And because he watches films, of all the teams' games on Sunday, and he's watched this for 2 years. He does not believe that Sloan will commit to any kind of running game. Well, again, I want us to make the playoffs. I think we have a lot of talent. I think we have wide receiver talent. But if we're not going to commit to a running game with some diversity in it, another stat I'll throw in here and then I'll get off my soapbox. Missouri, one of the best rushing teams in the college, right?
Yep.
If you go to what they're doing, on plays, inside plays, or counters, they're at about 23, 24, 25%. And one of them, they're like 15%. So diversity in the running game. You can't key on one thing that they're doing. Kirby Moore, to me, does a great job offensively and that kind of stuff. But if we're going to continue, anytime we run the ball, it's just so predictable. All you got to do, if we're running 60% zone, just flow with the play, string it out. You'll make the tackle. That is so hard for us. I mean, we can say that it's on our offensive line, and some of it may be. But if that defensive line knows exactly what you're going to do, you don't have a chance of blocking that.
But
Again, if you were to run a count, if they're going to flow with you, if you were one time wash that out and run a counter back against it, you got to make them play honest. Anyhow, I get off my soapbox there, but that's to me is the revelation of that game. It's a tough loss. It's a bad loss. I think LSU is a more talented team. Look, I'm gonna give Ole Miss credit. I was wrong in my prediction. I'll just call that out like it is. But I was wrong based on the fact that I thought LSU was going to focus and get better offensively and be more diverse in the running game. Kelly's talked about it, and he hasn't. So I'll shut up. Anybody got anything else they want to add?
Yeah, a couple more things on the Ole Miss LSU games. Looking at the stats of this game alone, LSU was 2 for 11 on third down, so 18% roughly. Ole Miss was 8 for 16. I'm looking at the drives LSU had. We only had third and less than 5, if I'm reading this correctly, twice in this game. We would run for 1 yard or 2 yards or negative yards on first, throw an incomplete pass, and then you're in an obvious passing down on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8. So that's, something we've got to do a little bit better at. Is I would much rather us go 4 yards every play, continue to get first downs, whether it's short runs, short passes, then throw deep balls into coverage or, run these, first down plays when they do have more than 3 in the box sometimes too. So the whole philosophy has got to change. And, if the first 4 games or 5 games of this season are any indication, I don't think anything's going to change anytime soon.
It's very
You
similar
know,
to last year.
The
yeah, and we're even more.
Go ahead, Sweets.
I thought it was more impossible to be more predictable this year than it was last year, but much like my football picks, I was wrong. I mean, it's just insane that as an old man, I can sit on my couch and know what play's coming. If I know what's coming, you don't think every DC that we face knows what's coming? That's why we average what 3.1 yards a carry or something like that. I mean, it's embarrassing. And the fact that
And
Kelly seems to
less than
continue to do
3.
nothing about it is worse.
Yeah, and it was less than 3 this past weekend, 2.8 against Ole Miss, who, like we mentioned before in our prediction, they rank 122nd against the run. So, something's either got to change, or if we decide to go watch a bowl game, it's probably going to be in Birmingham or somewhere in the Birmingham Bowl. And yeah, that is not where LSU wants to be. Their fans don't want to be there. So, there's got to be some significant changes made, either from a coaching perspective, scheme perspective, whatever it is. Something has to give here soon. I do want to give a shout out to an Ole Miss player, though. I want to give Trinidad Chambliss a huge shout out. I was lower on him going into this game. I thought the defense was going to put him in some tough situations, and they did the first drive or two. But as soon as they were able to go tempo, he really thrived in Lane Kiffin's offense. Finished with over 300 yards passing and another 70 on the ground. So he nearly accounted for 400 yards on the day. So shout out to him. He was a guy that I thought was going to have a really bad game. So anything else on the LSU game here?
Yeah, I want to give
Nah,
credit. You talk about give credit. I want to give to Lane Kiffin. I thought, to your point, tempo. I thought that was the difference in the game. He went tempo, which forced us. We've been very good at doing some situational stuff during when we play defense. We didn't blitz as much this game. He went tempo, and it kept us with the guys that we had on the field. We didn't substitute because he didn't take players off the field. He just went tempo. So Perkins, I think, played 90 plays. Weeks, I think, played 82. Both our safeties had over 80 plays. He basically forced us to stay with our 11 on defense. And that took away some of our ability. At first I'm watching, I'm like, we're not blitzing, we're not doing what we've normally done. Again, the credit to that goes to the fact that Kiffin went tempo and didn't allow us to get those substitutions in. We basically had to play with our guys. So I still think the defense competed, played well enough to win. I think if we had to play it over, we'd probably change some things there. We'd probably go nickel a little more with some series because you couldn't substitute. But again, the credit of that goes to Kiffin, and it did definitely help Chambliss. So, but Kiffin called a heck of a game. He did a heck of a job. We were out coached.
There's no doubt about it. What coaching staff was better on Saturday? No doubt about it. Now we'll talk about the Georgia Alabama game, our second big pick, where we all said, Georgia by 10 plus. What happened, boys? We missed another. Hey, we're just taking care of the gamblers. I told you from the beginning, fade us if we all pick the same. So don't say you haven't been told. But seriously, Georgia. I thought Georgia should have won the game. I watched that kid drop a wide open touchdown pass all by himself. But once again, I watched Kirby get in his own head when he faces Alabama. I mean, you're down there, you've got fourth, and I can't remember what the play was, but instead of kicking a field goal, we go to Cash Jones, our walk on running back. We've got stud running backs, standing on the sidelines, but we're going to go ahead and give it to Cash Jones like we did against Notre Dame last year in the playoff game, and see if we can catch him off guard with that. I mean, it's coaching malpractice. So while Georgia, I thought, outplayed Alabama, they deserved to lose the game because of stupid coaching calls like that. What was your take on it, D-Mac?
Yeah, so I actually get to watch all of this game, or well, most of it. Um, silent bus ride back to Grenada for me Saturday night, and when I get to the hotel, just turn this one on. Yeah, I was impressed with Alabama. I thought this they might lose, the team a little bit in this one. A big play. I can't remember who forced the fumble in the second half there that Deontay Lawson recovered, but that was a big play for them. Yeah, they just kind of man. I think this is, even though I was impressed with Alabama, maybe more of Kirby beating himself a little bit. Whatever deal he made with a higher power to win games, it seems like it's excluded Alabama exclusively in his time coaching. But that kind of my whole thought process on all the not the entire SEC, but a lot of the SEC teams is a lack of discipline by the players. There's a lot of false starts, a lot of late hits from teams this year. So, whatever's going on there, I think's playing a role in a lot of locker rooms that are losing games. Even, don't want to go back to the LSU Ole Miss game, but I mean, Ole Miss had 14 penalties as well. There weren't the penalties by Ole Miss weren't quite as untimely as the ones for LSU. Texas A&M, Auburn, a lot of penalties in that game. Kind of a sloppy game the whole time in that one too. But back to Bama, I think Ty Simpson's kind of getting his footing in the SEC. So, we're 3 weeks ago, we kind of wrote Alabama off a little bit after that Florida State loss. I think Bama might be back a little bit and, ready to compete. We'll see, what they do moving forward. But, yeah, I mean, they found a way to win on the road, and, that's tough to do in the SEC. So, what do you think, Kevin?
So first, let me say I felt like both these teams played pretty well. Now Georgia got off to a slow start, but I think over the whole of the game, I think the execution in this game was better than the Ole Miss LSU game. If you can't look at both teams, so going into the game, I really thought that this game meant a lot to Alabama because of that loss to Florida State and their coaching staff. So I thought their coaching staff would have them prepared, and I thought Alabama would come out and play well in the beginning, and that they did. Probably even better than I thought they would. They really executed well in the first half. They mixed it up a lot. Give them a lot of credit for how they played. They got Carroll starting at right tackle, which is a big difference in how they can play on offense versus the beginning of the year when they have Formby there. And so they executed, they played well. Simpson was good. It was a 3rd and 7, and I think it was their first drive. And he pulled the ball, he dropped back to pass, they recovered, and he pulled the ball and ran it and got 9-10 for a first down. Very aggressive, very decisive on that play. And I just thought that was the way he played the whole first half. So give him and give them credit for that. Their staff had them prepared. And then Georgia made some good adjustments at halftime. I really thought that the game might be tied at half or so, and then Georgia would play well the second half. Kirby would make adjustments like he normally does, and then they would pull away and win in the end. And that's kind of what I said. The game flowed that way, except for the fact that Alabama stepped up and Georgia could not finish at the end and do that. They did make adjustments. Didn't, Bama didn't score anything in the second half, and Georgia had chances. And again, Sweets, the call you mentioned down the goal line, it's a head scratcher. One, you probably should have taken the field goal, get the game tied, and then that way you totally have momentum, and you put the onus on Bama to do something with a game tied. But secondly, if you got 4th and 1, again, the defense is going to be up to close to the line of scrimmage, right? So to try to run a stretched running play to Jones makes no sense. If you want to run a toss off tackle, again, where your running back's going forward or, something, but to run a stretch play parallel with the line of scrimmage, that wasn't a good call. And you basically were begging that defensive end to crash down. But, your linebackers still can get outside and make a play, even if that happens. Georgia still had chances. They did drop a touchdown pass. All that being said, Ryan Williams dropped a touchdown pass in the first half, so I kind of count that as both teams dropped one, and that balances. But I think overall, a well played game, and I still think both of these teams, you got a chance of seeing both these teams in the SEC championship game. When I say, okay, what teams are playing the best right now in the SEC, I'd throw those two up there. Texas A&M's undefeated. So I would throw them in there, and then Missouri's playing pretty well. I'm close to putting them in that same group. So, and in Tennessee, they pulled out a big one on the road. And look, State's better than we thought. State's actually a pretty good team. So I'm not trying to rattle and get too much there. But again, I thought Bama really showed some fortitude. They're a much better team than they were week one. They've made some changes. They've done some things. Simpson's playing better, and give credit to them. And again, still think Georgia's a good team. So we're rolling from there. I guess we're going to get into. Well, no, we got Oregon and Penn State to talk about too, right? We want to talk about that one just for a second.
Yeah, I
James
think,
Franklin doing what he does.
Penn State had a chance there. Yeah, I mean, Penn State had the chance getting that interception on the 2-point conversion, only for Aller to throw an interception a few plays later to end it. I've been pretty critical of Drew Aller being talked about as a, first round pick, potentially number one overall pick. He's definitely got some talent, but he's not a guy who can take over a game. I think Dylan Raiola has a better skill set than Aller, but I compare those two from their inability to impact a game. They are true game managers. I'm trying to think of somebody like that in the NFL. I don't know if Sweets, do you know like a true game manager in the NFL?
Let me tell you, it's Trent Dilfer. You may not remember Trent Dilfer, but that's who it is because his numbers are not even that good. There's not been a big game that Aller has played well in. I think he's the most overrated quarterback in college football. I don't think he even had 150 yards passing in this game. He might have been there with overtime. We know
D-Mac, I
where you
know what you
guys
were
are
trying to
going.
do there. I know
Don't
what you
even
I know
try
what
to
you were trying to
compare
do
that.
there. I know what you were trying to do there. But no, seriously though,
And don't even try to compare. Don't even try to compare because that person is 5 times
I'm
better than
staying away,
Aller.
guys.
Trent Dilfer.
I'm trying to stay away from it. But if D-Mac keeps throwing that out there, I'm gonna hook it. I'm gonna hook it. But seriously though, no, I don't consider Rail and Aller the same, and the reason being is because Rail is a true sophomore who's got 15, 16 college games under his belt, and Aller's a senior. I don't know if it's fourth, fifth, sixth, COVID, seventh, whatever. He's got a lot more experience, a lot more big game experience, and you expect more out of a senior than you do a true sophomore. I'm gonna tell you what, I think Raiola is more talented than Aller too. Sitting and watching him in person fling the ball in high school and watching him in warmups and the way he does things and stuff. That kid's going to be a player. I think he's going to be okay. But where are we going next?
Yeah. Well, let me say this about Raiola and Aller. Raiola passed for almost 300 yards against Michigan. Aller's never done that in a big game. He always plays down in big games. So no, I don't. The comparison about not taking over games, absolutely right. But Rayola's done more in just 2 years than Aller's done in any big game in 4 to 5, whatever it is. So I guess we're getting into this week's predictions and kind of the big games this week. So, Sweets, you got State and Cincinnati.
That's right.
That's a big
Yeah.
game.
Matt Campbell's got
Go ahead.
Iowa State rolling right now. They're 5-0, ranked 14th in the country, playing good ball, scoring on offense, playing sound defense. That's just Iowa State football. Cincinnati is playing better. Cincinnati's 3-1. They're at home. They're actually favored by 1.5. Vegas doesn't respect Iowa State that much apparently, but I do. I think that Iowa State's got a lot of good players. Oh, sorry. I thought one of y'all said something. No, I think Iowa State's got some players. Quarterback Rocco Beck is thrown for over 1,100 yards. He's got 7 TDs and 2 picks. They're getting the ball to their playmakers. They're playing well. What do you think of that game, D-Mac? I think that Iowa State's going to handle their business. They're playing good ball, and I think they're going to handle Cincinnati this week.
So I'm guessing you took Iowa State in this one. Yeah. Well, two key metrics for me or numbers for me in this one is Cincinnati is really good at scoring the football when they get in the red zone. They're 100% red zone scoring. Iowa State is 66th in red zone defense, allowing points 83% of the time. So if Cincinnati can get into the red zone, they're going to find some success. But where Cincinnati struggles is They're -1 in the turnover margin, ranking 80th in the nation, and Iowa State's +3, ranked in the top 30 in that category. So I think Iowa State can create some turnovers in this one, and prevent Cincinnati from getting in the red zone, which is going to allow them to win this game. I think it's only a 1.5 point line right now, is what I saw. So I really like. I think this could be like a 2016 type of game. I don't think it's going to be a crazy blowout game. I think Iowa State's going to take care of business and move on 6-0. What do you think, Kevin?
So coming into the season, Cincinnati, I would have had Satterwhite on hot seat that we've already placed other coaches on. That is one thing. We are better at putting coaches on the hot seat than we are at predicting games. Because if we put you on the hot seat, you're probably, we've got a pretty good record there. Those guys are gone. And I say all that to say this: Cincinnati's playing better than I thought they would. They lost a close game at home in their opener against Nebraska. Since that, they've played very well, and they won on the road against Kansas. And Kansas got a good football team.
And they
They
do.
they lost a tough game on the road to Missouri, and so Cincinnati going into Kansas and beating them gives me a little hope that they may play this game tight. Iowa State is a good team, and they're well coached. And Campbell's teams do not. He does not beat himself. He's good on defense. I really think this game is going to come down to the fourth quarter and a turnover one way or another. I'm going to pick Iowa State to win by a field goal just because of Rocco Beck. But don't be surprised if this isn't a trap game for Iowa State and Cincinnati wins a second big game in a row this weekend. I think Cincinnati's a tough team, and they're going to be a tough out at home. Again, they took Nebraska to the wire at home. I think Nebraska's a better team on a neutral field than Iowa State. That being said, I think Iowa State's well coached, and I think they'll eat this one out, mainly because I like Rocco Beck.
So that takes us to the Michigan or Wisconsin at Michigan game, and I've got this one. So yeah, this is a kind of a offense defense battle. Wisconsin's defense has been pretty good this year, only allowing about 285 yards a game, and the Michigan offense is playing pretty well, definitely running the ball. They're running about 255 yards a game, averaging about 435 total. Michigan is a 16.5 point favorite in this one. I don't love that line. I think Michigan wins this one somewhere in the 10 to 14 range. I think they're going to lean heavy on the run game like they have all year. So I think Justice Haynes is going to have a really big game. But outside of that, I don't know how well they're going to move the ball in the pass game. Maybe playing at home gets them moving a little bit more with Bryce Underwood. But the Wisconsin defense is only allowing about 50 yards a game on the ground. So really stout run defense, but I don't think it's going to be enough to stop Justice Haynes this week. So I think Michigan wins this one. I'm going to say 31-23. 8 point win for the Wolverines. Who do you have, Sweets?
I'll make it short and sweet. I'm with you. I think Michigan just has too many horses. Luke Fickle, who's somebody who is entering hot seat territory, if he doesn't get it turned around here shortly, he's not doing. I thought a lot of him as a defensive coordinator. There are some guys that are just coordinators, not head coaches. In any case, while I'm not big on Sharon Moore, I do think Michigan wins this game, and I like them to win by 10 to 13. I'll call it 34-21. Michigan. Who do you got, Kev?
Yeah, I'll stay short and sweet too. Michigan's running game is going to dominate Wisconsin. Wisconsin defensively is not very good, and they're worse on offense than they are on defense. Fickle did a good job at Cincinnati. You know, how much people used to say it was his defense at Cincinnati, and I'll give him credit, but almost want to question that was it Marvin Free or not Marvin Freeman, but was it Coach Freeman at Notre Dame's defense? Was it his defense at Cincinnati? I think Michigan wins this game 38-13. I don't think this will be a close game at all.
Well, so that brings us to Clemson, North Carolina. What do you like in this one, Kevin?
So I guess you're giving me the game that somebody's got to win. Two teams that North Carolina probably had high hopes because of Bill Belichick coming into the season. And then obviously Clemson brought a lot of players back and they had high hopes. And so both of these fan bases are disappointed right now. North Carolina's 2-2. Clemson is 1-3. Somebody's got to win this game. North Carolina, though, when you look at it, they're just not a good football team. Offensively, they're averaging 263 yards a game. That's 134th. 263 yards a game. There's no offense being played. Um, there. People talked about Clemson not being good on offense, but they're averaging 100 more yards a game, and that's still not great. 360 yards a game than Carolina. Defensively, both teams are giving up about 365 yards a game, so very similar there. Clemson's defense is giving up 22 points a game. Carolina's same thing, 22 points a game. Both offenses are averaging around 20. Carolina's averaging 21. Clemson averaging 20. I'm just going to say, though, I think Clemson's played better competition. I think they get it going. I'm not going to tell you they're going to run away and hide because it's on the road, and North Carolina's had a week off. So I think the week off will help them, and it's been a home game. And look, everybody right now is playing Clemson hard because they've dominated that league, and if you're going to beat them, this is a year to take a shot. So just like Syracuse came out and played them hard from the beginning, I expect Carolina with a home game and a week off to do the same. I just think Clemson will pull it out in the end. I think this will be a 20. I'm going to say 24-13 game, and I will go with Clemson. What you got there, D Mac?
Yeah, I like Clemson in this game. Like you said, North Carolina has been really bad. Last week I think Gio Lopez against UCF was 11 of 14 passing, so completion was good, but 87 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think Adam Randall, the running back for Clemson, can be a big difference maker in this game. Klubnik is not, I thought he was a little overhyped. I don't think he's as bad as he's been playing early on. So I think this is, if Clemson's going to have any hope to, get to 9 wins this year, it's got to start here in this game. And yeah, they're a 13.5 point favorite. I actually like Clemson to cover this one. I think they win somewhere in the 35 range to 10. So I think going to be a really big win for Clemson. Get things back on track to some degree. So who do you have, Sweets?
I'm with you. I think that Klubnik finally wakes up and they get going this weekend. They've shown signs of life, albeit they're on life support. They're showing a little bit of sign of life there. I think Clemson wins the game. I'm going to go. I think they're going to score a lot. I'm going to go 42-20 Clemson. And will Bill Belichick ever be on the hot seat at all this season if things continue to go south from North Carolina? Who knows? Who's up next?
So that brings us into Boise State, Notre Dame. I'll get things started off with this one. Notre Dame's season has not started how they'd like to, with a loss to Miami week 1, then a loss to Texas A&M after that. But man, did they look good this past weekend against Arkansas. Really got the offense moving. They're averaging about 480 yards a game on offense. Passing for about 305, running for about 170. So I really like this matchup. Boise's also given up about 350 yards per game on defense. So they did have that loss to South Florida. They haven't really played great competition since then. But I think a key for Notre Dame is going to be to get the ball in the red zone. Boise State is absolutely terrible in red zone defense, allowing points 100% of the time when you get into the red zone. Notre Dame, I think, still needs to try and lean heavy on the run game to get some things going there. Jeremiah Love started to bounce back a little bit after a tough go to start. So they're going to really need to lean on him. CJ Carr has looked good this year. I do like Maddox Matson for Boise State. Almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. But I think the talent on Notre Dame as a whole is going to be a little too much for Boise State. The line's 17.5. This is one that I don't necessarily love. I could see it covering, but I'm going to go with a 41 to 24 game, just barely missing that spread. So, what do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I like Notre Dame. They're starting to really play well. They really, even if you look at their two losses, there's no shame in they got two losses by 4 points. And then the last two games they played, they went to Purdue and played very well, handled them, scored. Their offense is better this year than they were last year, in my opinion. And then that Arkansas game last week, their offense looked really good. So here's a guy that I really like, even though he's a redshirt freshman. I will tell you right now, he is one of the best quarterbacks right now. And I know that's going out there when he lost his first two games, but again, he didn't play bad in those games. The first half against Miami was a little bit, but that second half he played well, and then against A&M he played well, put 40 points on the board. He's playing really well. So I like Notre Dame. I think they're coming on. They're playing really well. I think they play well on both sides and they win this game. I think they'll win it by about 20. So I would predict them to cover. Again, you look at how their offense is playing, they're going to get in the 40s. So I'll call it 44-20 on Notre Dame. Sweet, what you think?
I'll give the score first. Notre Dame's going to win the game, but they're not going to cover. I got it like 45-31, something like that. And I'm going to tell you why, because Boise State can move the football on offense. Their rushing attack can give Notre Dame some fits. And I'm going to be really, I'll be an interested observer in watching that matchup in particular. Notre Dame's red zone efficiency versus Boise State's red zone defense is also going to be, a key clash too, because they're going to move the ball against Boise State's defense as well. But can Boise State hold them to a couple field goals instead of giving up touchdowns, or just shut them out altogether? And I think that they will. Like I said, no, I like Notre Dame to win, but I don't think they cover. And I think Boise State puts up a good fight. Also, it's a green out for the Irish this weekend, as they're wearing their Irish green uniforms. So kiss the Blarney Stone, boys. Who's up next?
Yeah, we've got Virginia and Louisville. You want to take this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so this is a game that if we were all talking about this at the first of the season, I don't think any of us would have predicted this game to be a game that might put a team in position to win the ACC. But in fact, that's what we have. You've got Louisville coming into this game undefeated 4-0. Virginia coming into the game 4-1 off of a win against Florida State. And two teams that honestly are playing good football on both sides of the balls. When you look at them, we got Louisville's averaging 38 points a game. Virginia's averaging 45 points a game. So take the over, and that tells you that. Now you say that, and then you look on the defensive side. Louisville's given up 268 yards a game, 18 points. Virginia's given up 353 a game, 23, so a little more. But they're playing competitive, and that's where I say both sides of the ball. Louisville's a team, Sweets, we've talked about this in the past. They got a coach that you and I both like, Jeff Brom. To me, he's one of the most underrated coaches in college football. Did a good job at Purdue, and that's a tough job. And he won at Purdue, and he does just like what he's doing. So balanced offense. So if you look at what they're doing on offense, they're throwing the ball for about 280, running it for 130, for right at 410 yards total offense a game, and then again holding teams to 268. He's always ran a balanced offense, coaches quarterbacks up pretty well, and he wins. And the game's at home. Virginia's coming off of a big win against Florida State at home for them. But let me throw a couple Virginia stats in here too. They're playing good football. And so when I look at them, they're averaging 539 yards offense. That's a lot. And again, you look at the balance 243 yards rushing, 296 yards passing, and they played 5 games. I say all that to just say this they're not a fluke. That win over Florida State was not a fluke. Both these teams are good football teams. So this game will have an impact on who puts himself in position to win the ACC. Give me Louisville in a very well played game, like 31-28. A couple of players, to watch in the game. Miller Moss, who transferred from USC, that's playing quarterback for Louisville. And again, Brom coaches him up. And I think, he'll have, he's a player to watch along with a running back duo of Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. Again, they play balanced. Um, and then on the Virginia side of the game, a guy that I don't know how many years of college football he's played, but he's right there with Pavia, and the fact that he's played a lot of years, Chandler Morris is is a quarterback at Virginia. He's got to be in his 7th year because I can remember he committed to Arkansas when his dad was the coach at Arkansas. Then he got fired, went to Oklahoma. He's played at Oklahoma, TCU, several other schools. I can't even keep up with him. So to see the fact that he's still playing quarterback somewhere, but anyhow, he's playing pretty well. And then you got running back Jamari Taylor, who has almost 300 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, other player to watch for Virginia in that aspect of things. But two good football teams that will fight it out in this game. Louisville's at home. Give me Louisville by a field goal in a game that we all should want to watch for a good football game. Sweet tea, you got in this
I agree with you. I think you picked Louisville, right? I like Brom and Louisville to win this game. I think that Virginia coming in off that high against Florida State. I think this is kind of a letdown game for them. It's on the road. Louisville is looking to make their mark. They feel like they've been on the cusp the past few years, and they're wanting to push it over the top this year. I like Brom to coach them up in this game and get it done. Like I said, it's not a knock against Virginia. Virginia's playing some good ball, and they'll be there in the ACC at the end of the year. But for me, I just like Louisville in this one. I'm going to take Louisville 31-21. They'll be partying in Louisville on Saturday night. What do you think, DMAC?
Yes, I know the Louisville is a 6.5 point favorite in this one, so you've got them covering in this one, Sweets. Kevin, you don't have them covering, but you have them winning the game. I am not going to give the gambling friends too much ammo on this one. I'm rolling the other way with Virginia. They
Ooh.
play really disciplined football. They're only averaging about 35 penalty yards a game, which ranks them 18th there. But one thing they are really good at is time of possession. They're holding the ball nearly a little over 34 minutes a game, which puts them at 7th in the nation there. I think if they can run the ball, control the game, Virginia wins this one. I still think it's going to be close. I actually really like your score prediction at 31-28. So I'm going to roll with the same score, just different winner in this
right.
one, and roll with Virginia here. So that brings us to our next game, Syracuse at SMU. Sweets, what do you think about this one?
I believe it's homecoming week for the Mustangs. They're 2-2, coming off the bye. Syracuse is 3-2. They're looking to rebound after getting just beaten up by Duke. But they've played well in bounce back games. So that's something Syracuse got for them. And I like the
All right, I think we may have temporarily lost Sweets there. So I'll jump into this game for a minute. Yeah, this is SMU's first ACC game of the season. Syracuse is sitting at 1-1 in the ACC. SMU is a huge favorite in this one, 16.5 points. Angeli just went down 2 weeks ago for Syracuse. So Ricky Collins, the Baton Rouge local, starting. So, had a little bit of a tough time last week. Yeah, I think he bounces back a little bit. So the SMU defense has given up a ton of points or ton of yards this season, about 450 a game. So I think Ricky Collins is going to have a little bit of success passing the ball against him. I think this is going to be a really close game, though. SMU's played a couple teams really well this season, but I'm going to roll with Syracuse in a 38-35 game. So I'll kick it back over to Sweets now that he's back, and we'll
thanks
see
thanks for
what you say.
thanks for picking me up. Now, what's the I'm looking at this. Am I reading this right? The line is SMU 15.5.
Yeah, so I actually saw it at 16.5.
But you're taking the underdog straight up. I love it. I love the chutzpah. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think that for as bad as FSMU's defense is, Syracuse is a little bit worse. And being on the road, I just think in that environment, SMU is going to be fired up. They're really trying to get that program rolling again in Dallas, and they've got the money and the wherewithal to get it going. They just need a little more time. I think SMU is coming up, and I think they're going to win the game. I don't know that they cover though because their defense can't stop anybody. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take SMU 35, Syracuse 28. Have you already talked on it, Kev? You lost me there for a second, so I don't want to have you repeat stuff if you have.
No, I haven't. Look, I'm going to go SMU 38, Syracuse 24. Closest spread. I wouldn't be surprised if SMU covered. I think Collins, look, he struggled last week, and I like SMU's defensive coordinator. I think he's going to struggle again this week. Good kid, like him, but I just don't see it. SMU win the game by 2 to 3 scores. Let me have one more point back to that Louisville, Virginia game, just on Jeff Brom. Again, we talk about coaches, because Sweets and I have talked about it. Again, a guy that I wouldn't mind some days coaching at LSU. You look at Western Kentucky, he wins at places that other people don't win. Western Kentucky, other people have won there, but 12, his last 2 seasons won 12 and 110. Purdue, a place nobody wins. It's a graveyard for coaches. Last 2 seasons went 9 and 4 and 8 and 5. And then at Louisville, his first year 10 and 4, last year 9 and 4. Played in the championship game a couple of years ago in 23. He's off to a 4-0 start. No one's talking about them as an ACC potential champion. Everyone's Miami, and I understand that. Don't be surprised if Louisville and Miami play in that ACC championship game, and don't be surprised if Brom goes out a winner. He's someone that schools like LSU and that need to consider. It doesn't get a lot of talk about, but like I said, he wins a lot of games, and he wins them at places that they shouldn't. SMU, give me them.
So that brings us to Texas Tech and Houston. I'll get things started on this one. This is going to be the only undefeated Texas matchup you see this year. Won't get to see it no matter how well Texas and Texas A&M perform this year when they square off. So huge game for the state of Texas this week. It's played at Houston this year, and Texas Tech is an 11.5-point favorite in this one. I love the way that Texas Tech's been playing. I picked them a few weeks ago to go to Utah and get the upset. They are rolling on offense. 73 yards a game, that ranks second in FBS. Passing for 368, that ranks first. Rushing over 200 yards a game at 35th, and scoring 52 points a game, that ranks second. But on the flip side of that, the Houston defense, against the competition they've played, has been really good. Only allowing about 265 yards a game, and only allowing about 13 points a game. After this one, those numbers are going to go up quite a bit. I think the Red Raiders really get things going early in this one. Cameron Dickey, the running back, I think he's going to have a pretty big game. Houston does struggle a little bit against the run, allowing 125 yards against the run on defense. I've been high on Texas Tech for a few weeks here. Absolutely love their offensive coordinator in Leftwich, 31 years old. So both of these teams, though, are really good at creating turnovers. Houston's +5, Texas Tech's +4, but Houston hasn't played anybody nearly as good as Texas Tech this year. So I think the Red Raiders win this one big. I'm going to go 42-17 with an easy cover in this one. What do you think, Sweets?
I'm with you. Texas Tech, I'm a believer. After they smacked the Utes around the way they did in Salt Lake City, that was impressive to watch. They're averaging their average victory is margin of victory is over 40 points a game, which is insane through 5 games. And they haven't played, the Sisters of the Blind all 5 weeks. They've played some decent competition. I don't think Houston has anything for them this week. BMAC, I think that Texas Tech calls their shot. I'm going to say it's something like 54 to 21, something like that. What do you think, Kev?
I like Tech to win the game. I think Houston's a well-coached team, though, and they're competitive. So I think it'll be a competitive play game that Tech will probably win by 13. Give it, 38, 24, more in those line, 13, 14-point game. I like Tech, but I think Houston will represent themselves well and play well in the football game.
All right, guys, this is the first one we've all agreed on. So for the listeners, you probably know where to put your money now.
Please take Houston with the spread.
T,
You may not win the
T,
game.
T. If hold on, this is a personal message to my wife. T, if you're listening, get on DraftKings and bet against whatever we said. Thanks. Who's up next? We've got Miami and Florida State. You want to jump on that, DMAC? You want to
Let's let Kevin start off with this one.
knock it out, Kev?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a really well played game. You got two teams that started off the season well. Miami's 4-0, got wins over Florida, big win over Notre Dame. Florida State beat Alabama. A little disappointing, I guess, when you go on the road and lose to Virginia. But like we discussed earlier, Virginia's a good football team. I
They
think
are.
for the people that don't follow college football, it's a shocking loss for Florida State. But if you follow the game and you look at what Virginia's done, and it was a home game, I think you can respect that. So let's break it down a little bit inside the game. So Florida State offensively, they had a change in offensive coordinators. They hired Malzahn as offensive coordinator. They struggled last year. Right now, they are number one in the nation in total offense, 600 yards a game. Again, very balanced. 264 yards passing, second in the rushing game, 336 yards a game running the football. And we know Castellano plays a big role in that between running and the diversity of their running game. Florida State, they're going to put pressure on Miami's defense. And this game is being played at Florida State. When you let's compare that to Florida or to Miami's defense. So Miami defensively is giving up 244 yards a game. That's 13th. So something's got to give there. When you look at rushing the football, they're 8th, 76 yards rushing a game against the team that's number 3 and running the football with Florida State. So something's got to give there. You got two top 10 pairings there. And then passing defense, Miami's pretty good there too, 25th, giving up 168. Flip side of the ball, you take Florida State. Well, let's go Miami offense first. Miami's offense, 446 yards a game. So solid numbers, 31st. Passing 270, running the football 176. Not at, good average, but solid average, 52nd in running the football a game. And then you look at Florida State defensively, 296, 28th, passing 184 yards is what they're giving up, 40th, 35th rushing 111. So, Miami's got the better defense. Florida State's got the better offense. Playing this game at home, coming off a tough loss. Miami's probably, got a chance of they're 4-0. Maybe they've ate some rat poison. So I'm going to take Florida State in this game. I think that, they're going to come out very hungry playing at home. This is a great traditional rivalry game that back in the 2000s and the 90s was one of the best rivalries in college football. So I think their fan base will be up for it. Back then, Miami was a team that Florida State couldn't beat them, kind of like Georgia can't beat Bama today. Long story short, give me Florida State in this game. I think their offense is going to play well and continue to do those things. Give me Florida State 31-24 over Virginia. What you got, Sweets?
I'm with you. I'm going to take Florida State in this game, and I'm going to tell you why. I think Castellanos is going to give Miami's defense fits. His ability to extend plays, and keep his eyes downfield to give receivers more time to get open has been key for Florida State. And they lost a tough game at Virginia, but that you play good team on the road, that's going to happen sometimes. Malzahn got the kid out of high school. That they're Batman and Robin. They've teamed up well. They're the number one offense in the country. And Cristobal, like we talked about earlier in the season, he always gives up a game or two that he's favored at and probably should win, but that's why he's never there at the end of the season. So go ahead and give me mark me down for Florida State 34, Miami 27. What do you think, DMAC?
Yeah, so again, I'm not buying into giving the betters anything here on this one. So, Florida State has had a really good offense, but you look at the Alabama game, they had 382 total yards. They did have 500 plus against Virginia. So the numbers are a little skewed with 775 against Kent State and 729 against East Texas A&M Lions. Didn't even know that school existed, to be honest. And in those two big games that they've played, the Alabama game and the Virginia game, they've turned the ball over 4 times. Miami's defense has been really good. They're also doing pretty well in the turnover margin, and they're really good at time of possession. Miami's holding the ball just under 34 minutes a game. And if you watched that Florida game a few weeks ago, they really dominated every aspect of that game, but they had quite a few long, methodical drives in that one where they just ran the ball for 4, 5, 6 yards over and over again. So I think Miami wins this one. I think right now they're a 4.5 point favorite. I don't know if I like them to cover this one. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to go with a 27-24 game in this one.
All right, that brings us into the SEC games. I'll start us off with a game that I think every year, so Georgia Kentucky's a game. Every year, everybody goes into this game saying that Georgia's going to beat them by 40, and Kentucky plays Georgia as competitively as anybody. It is at Georgia, though. Let me throw that in there. And, we've talked about Kentucky several times each week, and this is probably Stoops' least talented team. So I'm not going to get into a lot of this and that. I think we can move it along with this game. I think Georgia will, coming off last week's loss, they're going to continue to play well. I like Stockton as a guy that really likes to work to get better every game. So I think you'll see him play well in this Kentucky game. And I think so. Georgia, long story short, wins this game 34-10. D-Mac, what you got?
Yeah, I like Georgia in this one a lot too. I think, they're going to be mad after losing at home to Alabama last week, so they're going to come out ready to fight. They're a 20.5 point favorite in this one, and I think they cover with ease in this one. So my pick is for Bella this week. I think Georgia wins the game. I'm gonna go 42-10. 32-point win for the Bulldogs at home. Gunnar Stockton's gonna have a huge game. What do you think, Sweets?
I'm with you. I think that Georgia's going to be out for blood this week, and Kirby knows that now that he's lost a game, and with the possibility of another one on the horizon, because their schedule isn't the easiest. He's got to win. He's got to win with some style points too for the playoff committee. So I think he does that this week. I don't think they have any problem covering the spread. I like Georgia 45, Kentucky 10. I just think they're too much for them at home. They're going to come out. They're going to be ready for them. Isabella, I still love you though.
Love that. Our next game is Texas versus Florida. I'll get things started in this one. Looking at the line, it's played in Gainesville. The Swamp's always a tough place to go and play, but the Longhorns are a 6.5 point favorite with an over/under at 41.5. Texas is 3-1 with a loss to Ohio State. Florida on the other side is 1-3 with losses to all the Florida schools they've played in LSU and Tiger Stadium. The Texas offense has been running the ball pretty well, a little over 200 yards a game on the ground. Texas defense has been pretty good. Now they haven't played elite competition, but their defense really played well in week 1 against Ohio State too. The Florida offense has been horrendous. 115th in the nation in yards per game at 328. But on the other side of that, their defense, even though they're 1-3, has been pretty good. This is a game that I see going down to the wire. Texas has struggled passing the ball a little bit. Arch Manning still finding his footing in the SEC. And this is their first SEC game of the year. And, I would not want to have my first SEC raid start in the Swamp. That's for sure. Even when they're having a down season, their fans still really get up for home games. So, I think Florida's defense keeps them in this game, but ultimately their inability on offense prevents them from winning this game. I think this is going to be a 21-17 game for Texas. So I don't think Texas covers, and I also like the under in this game. What do you have, Kevin?
Yeah, so Arch Manning against a good defense on the road, Ohio State, really struggled to score, and he's playing a good defense. Honestly, if you just take defenses, Florida's defense is every bit as good as Ohio State's, maybe better. Billy Napier, look, he's on the hot seat. If he loses, this could be it, just like with some of the other coaches. I say all that to say this. I think I need to pick wins, so I probably shouldn't do this. But I think Florida pulls the upset in the swamp after the off week last week in a really ugly, low scoring game, much like that Ohio State game. I think their defense steps up. I think they play with a lot of passion. The players seem to like Napier, so I think they're going to go out and fight for him. They did against Miami, and they had him in the fourth quarter on the road. That game was anyone's game in the fourth quarter. I think it was 6, 7 minutes ago. It was a 13-7 ball game. So give me Florida 17, Texas 14, 17-13, 2 field goals for Texas, and in a game where Arch Manning struggles and they continue to talk that stuff at the University of Texas, and it becomes the talk of the weekend and with a big Florida upset. Sweet, what you got?
Well, I tell you what, if that happens, that'll be a fun chat next week. I like Texas here. I just think Texas has a lot more talent than Florida. Not a lot more talent, but I think they're better coached in Florida. More importantly, I think that Napier is, he's hanging on for dear life. And if this week is ugly, this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So give me Texas and Arch 27, Florida 13 in a bye bye Billy special.
Love that. Now we're on to the Vandy game at Alabama. You want to get us kicked off, Sweets?
Oh yeah, we love the Fighting Diego Pavias. They beat number one ranked Alabama 40-35 last year in the biggest upset in a long time in college football, and that got the whole Diego mania started. They're going into Tuscaloosa this year. Bama's going to want blood. They looked great against Georgia last week. Did what they had to do on the road. But Vanderbilt's scrappy. Vanderbilt is well coached, smart kids that play sound football. Obviously, not anywhere near talent wise that Alabama is, but they can give them some fits. I don't think that Vanderbilt's going to win this game. The last spread I saw was around 20-ish. Is that right? That seems a little high, but
No,
I
I
like Alabama.
saw 10 and a half.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that seemed a little off. I like Bama to win the game. I'm going to go 31-24 Bama. But I'm going to tell you what, the game's going to be in question late in the fourth quarter because of Vandy's scrappiness and their coaching, and those kids know how to play football and win games. And the more they win, the more they go out and play well. Their confidence builds, and they believe that they can. This is a team that truly believes that they can go into Tuscaloosa and win the game. I don't think they will, but they're going to go in there and fight like hell, and they're going to give Alabama all they want Saturday. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, so I'll jump into this one. Alabama looked great last week against Georgia. I think they may still come in a little high from that win. I thought Pavia was a good quarterback coming into the season. Wasn't as high as some people. Right now, he is my pick for the Heisman right now. And, we talk about Heisman moments for quarterbacks to be able to, say that they deserve that trophy. I think this is going to be one of those weeks for Pavia. I think Vandy goes into Tuscaloosa, and I think they pull off an upset. I think that they just play fundamental football so well. Clark Lee's a guy who, if I'm a big program making a coaching change, he's on my board. He may not be as well. But yeah, I think the Fighting Pavias, as you called them, pull off a win. I think this is going to be a 35-31 game. Diego Pavia really makes his case for the Heisman Trophy. Has a phenomenal game in this one. Throws the ball well, runs the ball well, and Vandy's off to a 6-0 start, which I don't think anybody other than Diego Pavia predicted before the season started. So, who do you have, Kevin?
All right, so Diego Pavia is undefeated against teams from Alabama. We Let me say that first. So if he wins again Saturday, that would move him to 4-0 against teams from Alabama. Look, he's got 1,500 yards total offense for the year in 5 games, so he's averaging 300 yards of total offense a game. I agree with you on Clark Lee. I think you know, I thought he was a good coach, but he followed up a really, really solid year last year. They're 5-0, and they're a good football team. They are a team that could easily go 9-3, 10-2 right now. So, excuse me. I think Alabama's going to win the game. I'm going to go 34-31. But I'm not gonna be surprised if Vanderbilt wins the game. And like I felt like Alabama would get off to a fast start last game, I think Vanderbilt will get off to a fast start against Bama this week, and that's gonna cause this game to go back and forth. And I think Bama wins by a field goal just because I think they're the more talented team. And DeBoer's got them playing better, so I'm going to give him credit for the coaching job he's doing. All that being said, Clark Lee will not be outcoached in this game. And you referenced the fundamentals of turnover margin. Clark Lee will not be outcoached in this game, and they believe this will not be a game that Vanderbilt will lose in the fourth quarter because they make mistakes. This will be a game if Bama's going to win, they will have to win the football game in the fourth quarter by playing well. I do think this game goes down in the fourth quarter. Bama by a field goal, but don't be surprised if Pavia pulls it off.
All right, so that brings us to Kent State versus Oklahoma. Anybody want to lead off with this one?
Well, I can lead off with it real quick because it's going to be ugly. Even though Mateer's not starting, will play. And I mean, look, I can play quarterback for Oklahoma and win this week with the defense that Oklahoma has against Kent State. And look, I can't do anything offensively. Okay, I don't even know if I can get to the running back to make a handoff. That's just how good Oklahoma's defense is. Oklahoma's going to win this game, 51-7. Kent State scores late against the third string defense. That's what I think. I don't think really, even if you're going to watch this game to say I want to see how Hawkins plays, I don't even think that's the game for this. Next week when they play Texas will be that game. So or 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Anyhow, all right,
I
Sweets, what you got?
I agree. I think Oklahoma calls their shot here and wins by as many. I think the biggest thing they're going to want to do this week, though, is get Hawkins in there and get him comfortable with what they want to do. They know that they're going to win this game. They know they're going to win handily. So I think they're going to want to run things and see what they've got in Hawkins. They, try some different things to see what he's comfortable with doing and then see how he progresses because next week's the big one for them. The Red River Shootout next week. So I think that Oklahoma's going to win this one. I'm like you. I'm going to say like 56-3 or something wild like that. But the key for me is going to be watching Hawkins and what they do with him, see how confident Venables is in him against a Kent State team that they shouldn't have any trouble with. And that'll give us a lot more information for next week's game against Texas. What do you think, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think like a 49 win in this one for Oklahoma. You don't expect to learn much about this team. With Hawkins at quarterback this week. Like Kevin said, I think just about anybody could play quarterback in this one. So I think they win big, continue to look good. But next week will be where we really see how they're going to look without Mateer at quarterback for the foreseeable future. That brings us into our last game of the week. The Mississippi State Bulldogs travel to Texas A&M to square off with the Aggies. This game opened up at Texas A&M minus 13.5. It's already moved to 14.5 with an over-under at 55.5. Mississippi State has definitely outperformed what I thought they were going to do for the entire season just through 5 weeks here. So, hats off to them. But the Texas A&M offense is looking really good. Averaging about 465 yards a game. That's good for 23rd in the nation. Their defense has, been good at times, average at other times, but they're still only giving up about 305 yards a game. The Mississippi State offense has been pretty good, 430 yards a game, 205 on the ground. And their defense, actually, these two defenses from the total yardage almost mirror each other. Mississippi State's given up 305, good for 33rd in the country. I think this is going to be a really good first half game where Mississippi State's going to be able to hang in for a while, keep it close. I do think that Texas A&M, even though they are averaging about 80 yards per game in penalty yards, I think they're just going to be a little bit too much for Mississippi State in this one. I think Marcel Reed's going to have a big game, especially in the second half once they wear down that Mississippi State defense a little bit. So, you've got three undefeated teams in Texas right now. Two of them play each other, so after week 6, you'll have two undefeated teams in Texas. The Aggies are going to win this one 38-24. Get a nice win at home. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think this will be a well played game. Mississippi State's definitely a good football team. None of us expected them to be where they're at. I think A&M wins the game because they have the better defense between these two teams. I think Mississippi State's had a hard time keeping teams out of the 30s. So I think A&M wins this game 23. I think you continue to see Mississippi State play well, though. They run the ball well. Um, this is again that Art Briles offense that they spread you wide as they can, try to get 6 in the box and run the ball, and they've been very successful. They're averaging over Mississippi State is over 200 yards rushing, and I do think you can run the ball against A&M. I just think A&M will have the better defense and get some key stops. In a game again that I think for a college football fan you'll want to watch this game. Give it to me, like I said, 31-20 A&M. Sweets, what you think?
I think A&M wins the game. I'll call it 38-27. Mississippi State has, shaping, and they've done a lot better job than any of us expected. So hats off to them. They've had a lot of games at home, though. Going on the road in the SEC to Kyle Field is not going to be an easy place to go in and try to get a victory. I don't think they're going to do it. The one thing that Texas A&M struggles with, they're perfect in the red zone. They've scored every time they've gotten in the red zone this year, which is incredible. But they're worst in the country in penalties. And Mississippi State has the turnover margin versus them too. So if you get a turnover or two in there, it could swing things enough for Mississippi State to pull off the upset. But I just don't see it happening. I think A&M is just a little bit too talented for them. But it should be a good game to watch. And I think it's a game that is still tight in the second half.
Awesome. Any last minute thoughts from anybody?
I'll just go back to a little recap from last week. My player of the week last week would have been Ty Simpson, or would be Ty Simpson. Thought he did a great job going on the road against Bama. So give him credit there. Much improved. So give him credit there. Player of the week, Ty Simpson. And that's all I've got. Look, another good weekend coming up. A lot of buys in the SEC, but a lot of good college football.
Yeah, be sure everybody out there who's watching this to like, subscribe, tell a friend, tell two friends, whatever, share us on social media, whatever. We're just looking to get people involved, and we're going to get to the point here shortly where we're going to start having guests on the show and make it a little more interactive for you. So please do all you can to support us. We appreciate your time and hope that you enjoy what we got, and chime in, please, what you like, what you don't like, whatever. We want feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Just to reiterate what Sweets just said, we'll be posting plenty of shorts and reels on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube this week. So make sure you comment, like, share. Call us out if you think we made a bad pick. Except for you, Bella, because George is gonna win this one big. So yeah, that's all that I've got. Everybody have a great evening, and we will be dropping another podcast Thursday night. See you soon.